So, good morning, Keeley.
Morning, Paul.
Just so I tell people who you are, Keeley, I first saw on a video. Was it now 2 years ago or a year and a half? I probably saw it about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Just over a year ago, anyway. And I saw you with a megaphone on the street or the streets of the UK, kind of warning people about what's actually happening to us. And you may have been the first person I saw doing that. And I guess that not many people that you knew of were doing that at the time. I don't know, but can I just, first of all, quote you in a posting you made earlier this year, just to give people an idea about who you are, what you're doing, and then I'll ask a few questions if you don't mind.
No problem.
So you said earlier this year in a sort of heartfelt posting, which has led to this interview, I do not have a talent for writing, but with the unbelievable truth unveiling itself this past year and the situation that I find myself in, it seems silly not to try and put something together. So here goes Facebook. Whilst we have that propensity to use Facebook for reaching out to people. So that was quite an emotional plea. Well, that's what came across to me anyway. And you had a video that went with that as well. But can you just really, first of all, tell us your story and what is of interest to people who you would rather, I mean, there are probably people who don't want you to talk about things. So can you tell us a bit about that and the background to what's happened to you?
Well, like you say, it all started around 18 months ago. I mean, there's some big changes in society, and it's changed our lives in a big way, you know, with family, friends, our environment, and the way we go about our business. I mean, a lot of people do bury their heads in the sand, but I speak my mind and I speak from the heart, and that's always been me. So I suppose that can also be my downfall at sometimes, you know. But it all started talking on the megaphone. With all these things coming to light, I started doing a bit of research and looking into, you know, well, there was a lot of doctors and nurses speaking out, especially in America back in the early days, and they were giving some information that just, you know, it made you question the narrative of what the mainstream media were telling you. I'm kind of an advocate, a wellness advocate for natural alternative treatments. I'm an advocate for cannabinoids treatments and natural plant medicine. So I've done a lot of research on the immune system and how our bodies, you know, evolve with our environment, environmental threats, and this has always been a thing, you know. Just for an example, years ago when we were kids, if we caught chickenpox, it was a thing, you know, we would get it out of the way, herd immunity. We would take the kids to a party or round the neighbour's house, and it would be out of the way. That isn't what we are, you know. Our body reacts to the environment, and we get used to the environmental threats. That's what our immune system does. It evolves with our environment. Unfortunately, there are going to be people who are going to be more susceptible and at risk to these viruses, as always, as it is with seasonal flu. So it didn't seem that, you know, we were getting the truth. And I'm not anybody special, but I went to one of the first marches in London. It was like I suppose it was like a gathering in Hyde Park, and it really opened my eyes. The police were pretty brutal that day. For an example, I remember seeing a guy on his own. I mean, they dispersed us all from marching around the park, and there was a guy on his own, black guy, and the police just rushed him and literally jumped on him, and the knee that landed on this guy, you heard his ribs crack.
Mm.
And I heard that, and I was there, and that was brutal, you know, and something wasn't right. It turned out this guy was actually working for the NHS. He was there on his own, wasn't causing any trouble. So where is the victim for this authority to take that measure in enforcing, you know, this violence? That's where it started for me.
And
it
that
all
just
seemed,
gives you an idea about the date, roughly, just a rough idea.
this was, I think it was the 19th of May. My 19th, or
This is
it was in
2020.
May. It was in May 2020. Yeah.
Mm.
So, I mean, I was already involved with some of the groups on Facebook. It's a bit of a sore subject with the 5G, but that was something that I'd been researching really early on before all the. So, yeah, I mean, there was a collective awakening of people all around the world. You know, it wasn't just me, and it just seemed right to be able to get out on the street and put the other narrative to the public so they could make an informed decision on some of this, or at least go away and do a little bit of research themselves.
I remember at the time, one of the first things, there wasn't great amount of censorship at that time, but there certainly was on the 5G aspect.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think what we've realized, a few of us have realized, that there's more to it than that. And the pictures really unfolded, the stories really unfolded in interesting and complex ways, which some of us who kind of knew what the plan was, because we now know there was an agenda of control and more, but we didn't quite know all the nuances and how that would roll out, even though there was some kind of a plan. But anyway, going back to you personally, what were the things that because you were going around the country, different towns, cities?
See, that's the thing. I mean, I just started putting out a few posts on Facebook and saying, right, I'm meeting in the park. And we started meeting at Eaton Park in Norwich on a Saturday. And for the first few weeks, I was there on my own. I literally there on my own. It was just, and we didn't get on the megaphone straight away. It was just giving out some leaflets and just meeting people with the same way of thinking. You know, it was like-minded people coming together, and that's in what I see as a peaceful assembly. It's nothing more than that. That's our human right. That's our natural creator-given right to be able to mingle with people who we choose to mingle with. That's it. Yeah. But with the events unfolding and what's happened, it's like I'm being treated like a terrorist. That's it.
But in fact, the terror seems to be coming from, well, what I would call assumed authority. Yeah. And it's terrifying. And you gave a very good example there, what is happening to actually bystanders, people who are innocent, have created no loss and no harm. And of course, that's the basis to our constitution, common law constitution. And what seems to be happening is actually the assumed authorities are doing exactly that. They seem to be making harms and taking away things like our liberties. Well, and to me, that's what came across, that you were standing up for those, what we would say are inalienable rights, or unalienable, unalienable rights. Yeah. And you were sort of the lone wolf, or the person crying. You came across as a real warrior, and I know now I know you better. I know that you are very much a warrior, and you have not you will not be intimidated, put it that way. And I think because my view is, because you're not intimidated, certain people don't like that, and the strong voices, they come down on people who are hard. When I say they, I mean, I'll let you talk about it rather than me just assuming and so on. But who have targeted you? What are the forces that have targeted you and tried to prevent you from? And presumably they've tried you from speaking out loud on the streets. And what is it about what you said? You think, who is it, and what is it about what you said, which people don't like?
Well, I mean, from what angle do you want to target this? Because obviously, who is going to gain out of this narrative being pushed and the fear mongering? That's where we've got, it's the corporations, the pharmaceutical companies, right? But for freedom of speech and just like I say, meeting up with like-minded people and talking the truth and not causing any harm whatsoever, these authorities who are in uniform, supposedly there to uphold the law and protect the people, are working for these corporations. They must be.
That's the impression that I get.
That's the impression I'm getting as well, because there's no victim. There's no victim whatsoever. So, and it's completely gone full circle, really, because it started off with the police. Now, because I've stood up and I've said, I've caused no harm, no loss or injury. I haven't broken the law. I'm a living woman. What authority do you have over me? Prove your claims. This is where it's been a bit of a battle, because I've had no response from the man acting as Chief Constable since the first letter in July last year.
And this is the man who's responsible for
the actions.
we're essentially talking about the police in this case and in your area. And can you tell us about who that was and who was going on with this guy?
Well, I don't really want to say too much about that and make claims that I can't prove. But I know from my point of view, he's acting as a Chief Constable. His role is to protect the people, as I said. So there's got to be an aspect of honour there. And if someone is protesting their innocence and saying, please prove your claims, because really what it comes down to is, from my view, because I have done nothing wrong. It's assault, it's kidnap, it's robbery of my property, it's false imprisonment. I've been arrested from home, threatened with forced entry and tasers, and it's just this is just fear mongering into trying. I believe, for me to put my hands up and say, right, I've had enough of this. Right, yeah, I'll just go guilty. I'll own up to these accusations that I absolutely do not believe are true or I want to consent to.
So it's like intimidation. Would you say it's been intimidated?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Because there's been, I've lost count, about 8 arrests since or unlawful arrests. I call them kidnaps because that's what they are.
And the first one being when?
This was on it was actually having a day out in Great Yarmouth on the megaphone. No harm being caused. We had a really good day with interaction with the public, sitting chatting with people, and the police. I was arrested for suspicion of a breach of the peace, Section 5, suspicion of breach of the peace, and they robbed my phone that day. So I think I was falsely in prison for about 8 hours. So straight away,
police station, local police station in Yarmouth.
In Yarmouth, yeah. So straight away, I've started writing letters, asking what claims, why you feel you've stolen my private property, and this went on and on and on. And I think, like you say, it's an intimidation tactics where it's just a snowball of different things, and because they've got the authority to do this, it just gets out of control. I mean, the next arrest was there was a non-violent dispute between me and my ex-partner at home, and the police were called, but they arrested me on suspicion of criminal damage of my own property. There was no need,
which seems a really odd accusation, isn't it?
This is it, on the pretense of believing there was a victim in the house. So they've arrested me, forced entry to my property, and then arrested my ex-partner. So we're both in custody, and then they've gone in and proceeded to search my house. And I was, because of my natural, I'm a natural advocate for treatments, and I'm entitled to treat myself the way I see fit under the Creator. And I had 3 herbal plants in the back garden, and that was ammunition for them to have another charge on me, so to speak. So I was arrested for suspicion of criminal damage on my own property, and then further for cultivation of a class B drug or whatever they want to call it. So now I'm saying to them, well, prove to me it's a class B drug, because I'm not growing that. That's the creator growing that. The sunlight, the soil, the compost that I've made, you know, the rainwater. It's Genesis, you know. Genesis says that the God-given plants and herbs are given there as our meat for our nutrition. So where does the authority come in to come in between you and your rights from the creator, you know?
My view on that is,
I wasn't cultivating drugs, which is what I tried to do.
My view on that is the licenses, and often licenses and registration to me are very much a form of control. And often these days we find also profit making, profiteering. So I'm very suspicious of anything that is to do with registration and licenses. And that's a whole subject we could go into at some other point, maybe. Yeah. Not necessarily today. But who made that phone call to the police that day, that first time?
It was a neighbour, because there was a bit of shouting going on. But regardless, I mean, that in their book, that was a tool then to have some criminal charge on me. You see. I
mean, it's unheard of to accuse you of criminal damage to your own property. Yes, it just sounds fishy. It sounds made up, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly.
From the outside.
It's just an attempt to try and find other ways of criminalising you, and that's what's happened. It's defamation of character.
But you've no idea who might have been behind that. Was it just something you think? It's not just something that the police on the day then decided to accuse you of.
It's the same police officers turning up that seem to be, let's say, the minions for the authority in that position.
Yeah. And so it's gone on and on since that time. And from what I understand, there's been no let-up on pressure. In fact, it's got a whole lot worse. It's kind of spiraled out of control. And would you like to talk about the salient points about how it's got worse?
Well, the whole point being is that I always, I was looking forward to having a day in court where I could state my case and be heard, because I truly believe there's no crime. I haven't done anything wrong. So you're expecting to get a fair trial. That's the point. And on the 3rd of February, I was actually due to appear in Great Yarmouth Magistrates for 2 charges.
3rd of February 2021.
Yeah. So my person was up for 2 charges, and one of them was the cultivation of cannabis, and the other one was the Section 5 on the seafront. So I'm already in the court building waiting with my affidavits, my court paper. It'd been submitted the day before, so they've got it on file. And the usher comes out of the court and he says to me, the magistrates require you to wear a mask to enter the courtroom. And I said, well, I'm exempt. I stated my exemption. I said, can you ask the magistrates, please put that in writing and add the name of the person who's, or the man or woman who's requesting that. I didn't get that request, and I was subsequently kicked out of the building claiming exemption. That was why I was refused entry to the court building, courtroom.
And if you look on the UK government website, it clearly says that anyone who feels it's a distressful thing to wear a mask, you aren't required to wear one. In fact, obviously, it also goes against our inalienable rights, bodily integrity, and so on. We have international law covers us, but it's what people don't understand. But anyway.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, just in putting things into perspective, it's a nervous time going into court. You've got to get it right. So breathing, behind that barrier, and also, are you seen to be heard in a courtroom if you've got a over your face? It just goes against all natural justice, really. It's not.
It's literally like a muzzling.
Of course, yes, yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things about the thing. It's like a muzzle, it's like reminding people of fear and control mechanism. But again, that's a whole subject as well, but all these things are elements of what we see as a very unfair treatment, unjust treatment of people who have obviously rights. And so what you and I know is that obviously this is for anyone's benefit, anyone who encounters the situation, you should always get the name of the person who either you suspect may give you some problem or is giving you some problem, because usually when you get into the situation where you're arguing with them, they're unlikely to give their name. So where possible to get their name or record the situation is to your advantage, because then you can use that as evidence. And of course, this is the crux of one of the main issues that you have, isn't it? Because yes, you have exactly done that. You've recorded various incidents on your various mobile phones because they've been taken from you. You've had to get more phones.
Yes.
And of course, what we find is that, and I know other examples of this, where people have had their phones taken unfortunately, by the police, and given back, some kept. But when they have been given back, material has been deleted from that phone, like the evidence, the video evidence of the situation. Now, you've got an example of that. Do you want to talk about that now or sometime later?
I mean, yeah, we can do. The fact is that when I'm being when they are detaining me unlawfully and falsely imprisoning me, my phone is not going into my property. So they're taking my phone for obviously their intelligence, which is completely against the Constitution, our unalienable rights.
When you say it's not going into your property, are you talking about some sort of formality there?
Yeah, I mean to the police station. When you actually go into custody, your property is supposed to be taken in with you. Well, my phone's not going there. It's not even being logged sometimes. So there's been a number of phones that have been taken and not given back, and particularly specifically a phone that was taken on the 23rd of March. It does hold evidence of the situation of another charge that they're trying to hold on me.
Just hold it there, 23rd of March. Let's come back to that in a second. So, because it's an important point, this, because I wasn't aware until you just told me this, that when you say they're not recording your property, you take it into the station when you're in custody, but they're not accounting for it. In other words, you could see what might be going on there. Do you suspect this? That the fact that they're not recording the property shows that, well, I mean, had they recorded the property and then you didn't have the property back, you wouldn't in a way have a leg to stand on. That's what they're thinking, because they wouldn't have to admit they've got your phone, basically. And your phone having evidence on it in your defense would obviously be a very important part of the defense. Do you think that's what's going on? That's why they're not recording the phone? I
think there's a lot of a lot of the due process not being followed when it comes to this, because they're investigating for their intelligence to try and fabricate charges rather than and that's not their duty. There has to be proof of an offence or a crime for them to take action. It's all suspicion, allegations, and then entrapment. That's all. That's what I see. That's how I feel. So this particular phone, which holds evidence of this other allegation on the 23rd of March, has been brought forward very quickly. They've found me guilty, or they found my person. They found Keeley Baker guilty in an unfair trial without the evidence, and when I wasn't there to deal with the matter. It was around the time my dad had been taken into hospital, and I'd been instructed by the hospital to self-isolate. And to me, that just seemed like another trap, even though I don't believe in it. If I was to go into court that day stating my truth, it's already on record that I've been instructed to self-isolate. And, in this narrative eyes, I'm putting people in danger. Would it be the ammunition they need to lock me up,
So it's a catch-22 that, on the one hand, they expect you to self-isolate. On the other hand, they expect you're required to be in court. The fact that you weren't in court it's like, okay, they've got you for not turning up at court.
The judge failed to see that as reasonable excuse to adjourn the case, neither the reason of asking for the property, which has been asked for on numerous occasions. I've even put in a subject access request, freedom of information request for all my property back, and this was due on the 11th of November. We're in November now. Also, I mean, I put in a civil claim in June, and it was issued on the 28th of June. This was to do with the 3rd of February, as I was telling you earlier, when I was refused entry for not wearing a mask to the courtroom. There was like subsequent events that stemmed from that. One being arrested from home 2 weeks later, and the third turning up at court for the day of dealing with this failed to attend warrant and nothing being there. So it had just been forgotten about. So there was 3 separate instances that led from that request to the magistrate and the refusal of letting me into the courtroom to state my case. Sorry, I've lost track of where I was.
Well, I've got a list. I've got a list of what was going on. So if ever you want to refer to...
Sorry, I was talking about the civil claim, wasn't I, Paul? That was it. So in the civil claim, it states that the phone was taken, this particular phone was taken in this unlawful arrest, and it needs to be produced for the trial in August, because I'd already been to court twice before that. So the justice system is fully aware. So I'm not going against the justice system. I know there are honourable people up there, but I think it's just being kept in these lower courts to try and get the paperwork stamped, basically, and me not be heard, you know. And when we don't rebut these things, it's just finalised. And I seem to be like a bit of a thorn in their side at the moment, you know. But yeah. I'm not doing it out of spite or to be, you know, an enemy of the system, because we need the system, but we need the honourable people back in the positions to be able to manoeuvre that system properly, because the power has been taken away from what we stand for in this country, you know.
My feeling is that, well, I'm hearing stories. I mean, as you know, I run the police support forum. The reason I set that up was because I felt we need to turn the police around, get them back on track, working under their oath and so on. But it's a bit of a uphill struggle. Now, I just was hearing Anna Bursary talk the other day, and in her events, when she's talking to people, the crowds, and she's also talking to police, and she's coming across police who are saying, actually, there's a lot of us in the service who don't agree with what's going on, and because she was saying, look, we're coming for you if you're not going to be acting properly under the law, which is ironic. Then, you know, we're coming for you as lawyers. And he said, actually, I'm very happy about that, because we're sick and tired of it. We just want something done about it. And he said there's a whole lot of other police who feel the same way. The big problem we have, especially in the UK, it seems, is a lot of police just aren't speaking up, not stepping up to the plate. And I think we think it's because they don't want to lose their jobs, and it's not actually a job, it's an appointment officially. They are fearful themselves. And I think the trick is, if they felt that they were supported more and there were others, they knew of those others, something might happen. But as it is, I think they feel very disconnected. And I think this is one of the tricks that we know of, that anyone who wants to control situation, they keep people in silos. They've got a big agenda, and this goes back to the military as well, especially in the States. They keep people in silos on particular programs, so not everyone, people don't know the whole picture. And I think what I'm thinking is that if the police knew what was going on, they'd be they'd be questioning, they'd be reluctant to do what they're being asked to do. And I think we've really got to bring this home to the police to realize that they're putting themselves in jeopardy by following what we would say are pernicious orders, which are actually unlawful orders. They're being given unlawful orders, which will actually endanger their lives. And the end result could be that they're also put behind bars.
Exactly.
It could happen. But whilst we've got, I would say there's a lack of leadership at all levels in the police, in the church, and in government. But a lot of people are coming forward, and I think it's changing. It's a very slow change, especially in the UK. But the reason why I'm doing this interview with you today is because, I mean, we've got to do something about it. And I think you're one of those people who have got a strong voice, a clear voice, and you're trying to do something about it, to try and get justice, not just for yourself, but what would impress me was that you're trying to get justice for everyone else. You have such compassion and passion for other people, for justice.
I mean, you know, it's not about being against the police. It's not about being against the system. It's about, you know,
we want them to
in
be
your right and listening to your conscience, listening to your intuition, because that's your guidance. And I'm not going to, you know, put my hands up and say, right, I'm going to put my person in that position where they're going to be penalised for something they haven't done. You know, and that's it. And if we all did that, then things would change. Because we put government there to protect people and property, and like, it's not going very well at the moment, is it? Really?
No.
Who's gaining from this? Who's gaining from it? You know.
Yeah, and I think what we have to do is, like people often say, especially journalists, follow the money, because often there is often sort of misdeeds. People are profiteering one way or another. I think one of the ways we've resolved this is by exposing things like that, who is making money out of the situation. And it is partly government ministers, as we know, and it's also others who are in positions of leadership and power and authority, assumed authority in many cases. And our rights are being trodden on. So, but I don't know if you have, such as your passion, you wanted to do other things about this or find other ways to tackle the situation.
I mean,
you're trying to tell us about because what we understand the police are police constables. The word officer is an interesting word, which is perhaps more to do with corporations than it is to do with their actual role as an appointed constable. And I think you've been on a course, have you not, which is about understanding what the role of the police are and actually taking on a very similar position as
yes, I did, and it's something I haven't been able to pursue kind of recently because of the events that have unfolded. But yeah, I went to the common law court, one of the first police constables training. Yeah, it was very enlightening. But
which sounds like it's peace constable. Peace constable.
Sorry, you're breaking up a bit there, Paul. I can't hear you.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Let's try and wrap this up quickly because we may have an issue with the internet here or with the computer. I'm not sure. In a nutshell, what do you think should be done with your situation, and what would you like to see done?
Well, at the moment, the decision of the magistrates is now going to a judicial review. Because I've got no representation, I'm doing this all myself. I have to move the court, and I'm sort of. It's a battle. So we've asked for the warrant to be temporary injunction on the warrant, or the enforcement of the warrant, because I'm bringing a claim against Norfolk Constabulary for trespass and conversion, interference with property, amongst other things. So I'm just getting that drawn up at the moment. But as I said, it's about trying to get the law equal for everybody. I'm not rich and I haven't got a lot of money, and I'm just somebody who is passionate about life and the future. So having to borrow over £4,000 to put this civil claim in to try and protect myself from a misadministration of justice further down the line from what's happened already, and that hasn't helped me. I'm now in a position where they've got a live warrant from an unlawful conviction that is now in the hands of the same people that have been forcing me into these traps of allegations and things. So it's just me. It's just
so you're
me.
trying to find fight in a way that the system, or fight for your right to defend yourself, put it more accurate.
Yeah.
And it's requiring money. So you set up a crowdfunding thing.
Yeah,
I mean, how can people support you, either emotionally and so on, but also maybe if they want to give you money to support that fund, what is the best way that they can reach you and support you there?
Well, I've at the moment, it's still pending for approval, so we'll see how that goes, because I couldn't set up a PayPal either. I don't know whether I'm being restrained or restricted from doing that. But Paul, it's just been a nightmare. Yesterday was 3 months, 3 weeks and 3 days since the 11th of August, since that warrant. In that time, my dad's passed away. I couldn't go to the funeral. I haven't been able to go and support my family or you know, and I'm having to stay from place to place and just, I mean, there's been times when I've had nowhere to stay. Yeah. I've done nothing wrong. I can't go home. You know, this is the plea to the people. Like, we need to join together now and see what wrongs are actually happening. Because if this is happening to me and I'm innocent, how many other people does this happen to?
Exactly.
You know, this is it.
Keeley, why don't we?
The children's future.
Yeah.
You know, this is their future, and it's going to get worse.
Why don't we come back, do another interview sometime down the line, not too far from now, and see where we are, maybe with the crowdfunding thing, and see and follow your story. Should we do that?
That'd be great. That'd be great. I'll let you know when it will be posted. So there is a Facebook page, Angel Journal, which gives you updates on things that are going on with myself and a few other people. But you can get me on Facebook. It's Keeley-Ann Ofthefamily Baker, all one word. That's my personal profile on Facebook.
Is it A-double-N?
A-double-N,
A-double-N-E, yeah.
Just no, A-double-N.
A-double-N, yeah.
Without the E.
Yeah.
And I will be promoting this sort of campaign later down the line, as soon as it's approved, if I get it approved. If not, I'm going to have to find some other way of doing it. But yeah, I mean, get in touch if there's anything that you feel like you can put to this, and you know, collaborate with, because as I say, it's not selfish reasons why I do this. I'm not doing this for any kind of gain to myself, but it just feels right to me, and
I think your story is important.
I can do with some support, really. Yeah.
Your story is important, and I think what we'll do, we'll follow the story. We'll put this into the Brighter Times in the near future, the magazine which we launched in September, and I think when the public are looking or watching, I think that's going to be a huge difference, because you're not going to feel alone, and the authorities and the unlawful authorities are going to have to watch their game, and be on their best behavior, because the people are watching.
They've done everything they can to try and let's just say both sides of the narrative are being controlled, Paul. So, you know, it got very dark, and I'm not going to go too much into that, but just trust your gut, trust your instinct, and stand in your power. Stop following these false prophets. Stop following these Instagram people. They are not, you know, I'm not saying about everybody, but just trust your gut, trust your instinct, and follow your own intuition, because that's how we're going to change as a collective, you know, collection of people.
Here, wise words. And so we'll come back to you at some point. Keeley, thank you very much for the interview today. It's been great. Paul. Okay, we'll speak soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.